Elian Foster's fingers gripped tightly around his daughter's tiny hand as the crowd around them surged like a restless tide. "Stay close, Ellie. Don't let go," he said, his voice low but firm. "I'm not letting go, Daddy," Ellie whispered, her wide brown eyes scanning the sea of people. The fireworks from the end of summer concert were still echoing in the sky above the city park, but Elian wasn't watching them. He was focused on getting his 8-year-old through the chaos and back to their old Honda parked 3 blocks away. But then he saw her surrounded, jostled, clearly overwhelmed by the crowd. She stood frozen near the barricades, her eyes darting around as people pushed past her. She didn't look like someone who belonged here. Her heels were too high, her hair too perfectly done. Her expensive-looking black dress clashed with the beer-stained jerseys and glow sticks around her. "Hold on, Ellie." Elian guided his daughter toward the woman. "Ma'am, are you okay?" The woman blinked, startled. I lost my driver." People just started pushing, and "Come with us," Elian said without thinking. "We're heading out. You'll get trampled if you stay here." Her eyes hesitated on him for a second, then dropped to Ellie, who was clutching a stuffed penguin under one arm and staring up at her. Something softened in the woman's face. "I'm Layla, thank you," she said, nearly breathless. "Elian, that's my daughter Ellie, stay close." They moved together, Elian clearing a path with his arm, shielding both of them. He didn't know why he cared so much. Maybe it was the panic he saw in her eyes. Or maybe it was just the way she hadn't hesitated to follow a stranger because she had no better option. Once they made it to the quieter sidewalk, Layla finally exhaled. "You saved me back there." "I didn't save you," Elian said, checking Ellie's shoe that had come loose. "I just got you out." "Well, you didn't have to. Most people would have walked right past me." "I don't usually rescue women in designer dresses from concert stampedes," he said with a half smile. Layla looked down at her now scuffed heels. "I really didn't think this through." Eli tugged at her dad's sleeve. "Can she come with us to the car, Daddy? She looks like she needs help." Elian looked at Layla. "You need a ride," Layla hesitated, "if it's not too much trouble." "My driver was supposed to meet me at the private exit, but, well, clearly I messed that up." "Come on," Elian said. "We're parked a few blocks away. It's nothing fancy." She followed them, a little too quiet. Elian noticed the way she kept glancing around, like she was worried someone would recognize her. But she didn't say much, and he didn't push. When they got to his rusty, sun-faded Honda Civic, Layla paused. "This is your car?" "Yeah," Elian said, opening the back door for Ellie. "It's not a town car, but it runs." "No, I didn't mean sorry," she shook her head. "I didn't mean to sound rude, I just thank you for even offering." "You're welcome," he said as he started the engine. "Where am I taking you?" Layla hesitated. "Do you know Rosewood Towers?" Elian blinked. "The penthouse apartments," she gave a small nod. "Yeah," he tried not to react, but even Ellie raised her eyebrows. "That's where you live?" he asked. "For now." 20 minutes later, he pulled up in front of a building that looked more like a luxury hotel than an apartment complex. A doorman opened the car door and Layla stepped out, brushing her hair back. She turned to Elian. "I owe you. You don't owe me anything." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a card. "Just in case if you ever need anything." He took the card, glanced at it. "Layla Monroe, CEO." Monroe Tech, his eyebrows lifted. "You're a CEO, don't hold it against me," she said with a small grin. "I won't," he said, laughing, "but you might want to avoid public concerts next time." She leaned in. "I wanted to feel normal for once." "Guess I got more than I bargained for," she waved at Ellie. "Bye, sweetheart. Thanks for letting me borrow your dad." "Bye, Miss Layla," Ellie chirped. As Elian drove off, he looked down at the card again, then tucked it in the glove box. He wouldn't be calling her. She was from a different world. And people like her didn't fall for single dads who worked construction jobs and drove 10-year-old Civics. But Layla did watch his car disappear through the glass, her heart still racing not from fear anymore, but from something else entirely. She hadn't expected to be rescued tonight. She definitely hadn't expected to feel this. 3 days later, Elian stood ankle-deep in concrete, sweat dripping down the back of his neck as the sun beat down on the half-finished foundation. The construction site was loud, chaotic, just the way he liked it. Noise was easier to handle than silence. Silence left too much space for thinking. "Hey, Foster," his foreman called out. "We need you over by the south trench. One of the supports looks off." "I'm on it," Elian shouted back, grabbing his tool belt and heading across the gravel. Dust clung to his boots, his shirt stuck to his back, and his mind should have been on the measurements in front of him, but it wasn't. It kept circling back to Layla Monroe. He'd tucked her business card into his glove box and hadn't looked at it since. Still, her face came back to him uninvited. The way she'd scanned the crowd like she was somewhere she didn't belong, how her voice had wavered when she said her driver was gone, and how quickly she'd composed herself the moment she realized someone was watching. She had that kind of beauty that made people take a second look and that kind of presence that warned them not to get too close. "Elian," a voice called. This time it was softer, familiar. He turned to see his sister, Maya, walking toward him, Ellie's backpack slung over one shoulder and the little girl herself hugging a juice box in one hand. He pulled off his gloves. "She was okay at school?" "Fine, but her teacher wants to talk to you about parent night next week. And she says Ellie's been distracted in class." Elian crouched beside his daughter. "What's going on, Peanut?" Ellie shrugged. "I was thinking about the lady we helped." Maya raised an eyebrow. "What lady?" Elian stood again. "Just someone we gave a ride to after the concert." She was stuck in the crowd. Ellie tugged her aunt's hand. "She looked like a princess," she whispered, "but she was nervous, like she forgot how to breathe." Maya tilted her head. "You helped a princess, not a real one," Elian muttered. "She's just someone from uptown." Maya narrowed her eyes. "Elian, uptown people don't usually wander into City Park concerts. Who is she?" He didn't answer. Instead, he wiped his hands on a towel and took the backpack from her. "I'll take her tonight," he said. "Thanks for picking her up." Maya watched him for a beat. "If this is one of those I'm not good enough things, save it. You're a good father. Don't let whatever you're thinking keep you from something." That night, after Ellie was asleep, Elian finally opened the glove box. The card was still there, pristine and out of place in his beat-up car. He stared at it, thumb hovering over the embossed text. Then he reached for his phone. The Monroe Tech building didn't look real in person. Elian stood in the lobby the next afternoon, out of place in his cleanest flannel and dark jeans, trying not to shift his weight too visibly. The receptionist gave him a look that hovered between curiosity and dismissal. "I'm here to see Layla Monroe," he said. "Do you have an appointment?" She gave me her card. The woman's fingers flew over the keyboard. She studied the screen, then picked up the phone. A few seconds later, she looked up again, surprise flickering in her eyes. "Take the elevator to the 23rd floor. Her assistant will meet you." The elevator doors opened to glass, gold, and silence. Layla's assistant greeted him, a woman in her 40s with sharp glasses and a sharper tone. "Mr. Foster, right this way." Layla stood near a floor-to-ceiling window, her back to him, phone pressed to her ear. She turned at the sound of footsteps, and for a moment, her expression didn't change. Then she smiled. "I'll call you back," she said into the phone, hanging up without waiting for a reply. "You really came. You gave me the card." She walked toward him, her heels silent on the marble floor. "I wasn't sure you'd use it." "I wasn't either. My daughter kept bringing you up." Layla's expression softened. She was sweet, brave too. "I didn't come here for thanks," Elian said. "I just figured you should know your driver never showed." Her lips curled in a dry line. "He did. 45 minutes late. Said there was a road closure that never existed. Guess that's what happens when people assume you'll wait." "Exactly." She gestured toward a leather chair. "Sit." He hesitated, then lowered himself into it. She sat across from him, crossing one leg over the other. "I've been thinking about you," she said. "About how you didn't ask who I was or what I do. Didn't seem like it mattered. You looked like someone who needed help." "I did, and I don't like needing anything, especially not from strangers." Elian leaned forward. "Then why give me your card?" Layla hesitated, then looked him straight in the eye. "Because when you looked at me, you didn't see a title or a bank account. You just saw a person." He didn't reply right away. Then he said, "I don't belong in this kind of place." "You belong wherever you stand," she said quietly, a beat past, charged and unfamiliar. Layla stood. "I have a charity event next week. It's for the Monroe Tech Foundation. I'd like you to come." He raised an eyebrow. "You want me to show up at some black tie thing? I want you to see my world, and I want to see how you walk in it." Elian stood too. "You sure about that?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He gave the smallest nod. "Then I'll be there." As he left, Layla walked back to the window and watched the city stretch beyond the glass. She didn't know what this was yet, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she had to have all the answers. She just needed to know where it was going. Elian studied himself in the small mirror above the sink, adjusting the borrowed tux jacket that didn't quite sit right across his shoulders. It wasn't tailored, it wasn't new, but it was the best he could do without spending money he didn't have. Maya leaned in from the hallway. "You clean up all right, Foster. You look like you're about to ask someone to invest in a startup." He shook his head. "I still think this is a bad idea." "Well, it's too late for that. Ellie's asleep, I'm staying the night, and you've already shaved, no backing out now." Elian turned to face her. "If anything happens, nothing's going to happen. Go, you've got someone waiting." The event was already in full swing when he arrived. Valets whisked away luxury cars, guests in glittering gowns and sleek suits streamed inside, and flashes from photographers lit up the entryway like a red carpet. Elian handed over his keys, ignoring the way the valet's eyes lingered on the dented side of his truck. Inside, the ballroom was a cathedral of crystal and light. Chandeliers sparkled like constellations above him, and soft jazz drifted through the air. Servers in white gloves glided between guests, offering champagne and hors d'oeuvres he couldn't begin to name. He kept his hands in his pockets, trying not to wrinkle the jacket further. He spotted Layla near the stage, speaking with a group of older men in tailored suits. The moment her eyes found him, her posture shifted. She excused herself and crossed the floor with purposeful elegance, the train of her navy gown trailing behind her like smoke. "You came," she said, her eyes scanning his face. "Still time to regret it," he replied. "I won't," she said, linking her arm through his. "Come on, I want to introduce you to someone." He followed her through the crowd. Every pair of eyes seemed to track their steps. It wasn't just his boots or the awkward way he moved in formal wear. It was Layla. She walked beside him like she didn't notice the whispers, or didn't care if she did. They stopped beside a woman with sharp cheekbones and a neckline that defied gravity. "Elian, this is Claudia Grange. She's on the board for the foundation and runs one of the largest investment firms in the city." Claudia gave him a long look. "And you are Elian Foster," he said, extending a hand. Her handshake was brief, cool. "You work in tech construction." Claudia raised an eyebrow but said nothing more. Layla's jaw tightened. "Claudia, Elian helped me during the concert last week, got me out of a very dangerous situation." Claudia's gaze flicked between them. "How noble." Layla's tone cooled. "He didn't ask who I was, he didn't try to use it." Claudia's smile was thin. "How refreshing." As they walked away, Elian leaned in. "Is this your world?" "Not by choice," Layla murmured, "but some rooms you have to enter to change them." He nodded slowly. "So what's the point of all this?" The foundation funds tech programs for under-resourced schools. Tonight's goal is to raise enough to launch 5 new labs. "All right," he said. "That makes it worth it." When the speeches began, Layla took the stage. Elian stood at the back of the room, holding a glass he hadn't touched, watching her command the crowd. She was composed, sure-footed, eloquent. But when her eyes met his across the room, her expression softened, just for a breath. After the applause faded and the music rose again, he made his way outside for air. The terrace was quiet, the city sprawling below in a sea of lights. He leaned against the railing, exhaling. "I thought you might slip out." Layla's voice came behind him. She stepped into the night, her hair pulled back now, revealing earrings that caught the moonlight. "I needed a break," Elian said. "I'm not used to being stared at like I don't belong." She joined him at the railing. "They stare because they don't understand you. They stare because I don't wear $1,000 suits or speak in buzzwords. And yet you see through everything they can't." He looked over at her. "Why'd you really ask me here, Layla? I wanted you to see who I am when I'm not lost in a crowd. And I wanted to see if you'd still look at me the same." He didn't answer right away. Then, "You look like yourself." She turned to face him fully. "I've had people try to buy me, manipulate me, impress me. You didn't do any of that. You just saw me. I didn't plan on seeing you again, I know. But I haven't stopped thinking about you." Layla reached out, brushing his hand lightly. "Then don't stop." Elian's hand closed around hers. "I've got a daughter. My time isn't easy. My life isn't simple. I'm not asking for simple, I'm just asking for honest. He stepped closer. Then here's some honesty. I don't trust easily, and I don't want Ellie getting attached to someone who'll disappear. I'm not going anywhere, she said. Unless you ask me to. He didn't speak. Instead, he leaned in, hesitating just long enough to see if she'd pull away. She didn't. When their lips met, the noise of the city fell away. It wasn't perfect or planned, but it was real. When they pulled apart, Layla whispered, "Come back inside. I want to dance with you. I don't know how. We'll figure it out." She held out her hand. He took it, and together they walked back into the light. Elian stepped into the Monroe tech lobby again, this time not in borrowed clothes or second-guessing his place. The invitation had come unexpectedly, a simple call from Layla's assistant asking if he and Ellie would join her at the new community tech center's opening. He hadn't needed convincing. The center had taken months of planning, and Layla had poured herself into it. Elian had watched it come together in pieces, first on blueprints he didn't understand, then in photos Layla had texted him between meetings, and finally, in person on weekends when she'd drag him through hallways pointing out everything from smart whiteboards to 3D printers. Now, as he walked through the wide glass doors with Ellie at his side, he saw it finished. "Is this really for kids like me?" Ellie whispered, eyes wide as she took in the sleek rows of computers and the colorful wall mural of constellations stretching across the back. "Yours and a few thousand others," Elian said softly. Layla spotted them near the robotics station and crossed the room, her heels clicking against polished tile. She wore a tailored navy jumpsuit, her hair pulled back in a low twist that made her look 10 feet tall. But the moment she reached them, she crouched to Ellie's level. "I saved you a spot on the coding wall," she said. "You want to put your name on it? Can I draw a penguin next to it?" Layla smiled. "One penguin, but only if it wears glasses." Ellie darted toward the markers, already planning. Elian folded his arms, watching Layla straighten again. "You did all this." "We did it," she corrected. "Your idea to add a tool workshop, it's in the back wing. Kids can learn to build with their hands." He blinked. "You actually put that in." "I don't forget things that matter." They stood in silence, the sounds of laughter and electronics humming around them. Then Layla turned to him fully. "I've been offered a position in London," she said. "Board-seated global tech firm. It's everything I once thought I wanted." Elian kept his face steady. But it would mean leaving this. The foundation, the schools, this center, you and Ellie." He nodded slowly. "That's a lot to walk away from." "I haven't made a decision yet." "I don't want to make it without knowing where you stand." Elian met her gaze. "You're asking if I'd follow you to London. I'm asking if this means enough for you to want something bigger than a few weekends and late-night calls. I'm asking if I'm already too far in." He stepped closer. "I don't know anything about London, but I know Ellie's finally stopped asking if you're coming by. She just assumes you will. I know you make space for us in a world that doesn't offer much room, and I know I don't want to go back to how life was before you." Layla's breath caught just slightly. "That sounds like a yes. It's a yes if you're still choosing us even when you don't have to." Her voice was quiet. "I am." He reached out, brushing a curl behind her ear. "Then we figure it out, together." A voice called from the other side of the room. "Dad." "She said I can name the robot." Elian turned and waved at Ellie. "Don't name it after that penguin again." Layla leaned closer. "She's happier. You're different too." "I stopped thinking I had to do this alone. That changes a man." She took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "I'm not leaving. Not for London. Not for anything." He studied her for a long moment. "You're really sure?" "I'm not giving up a life. I'm choosing one." Later that evening, once the speeches had ended and the guests had thinned out, Layla led Elian and Ellie to the back wing of the center. The tool workshop was quieter, with shelves of wood, bins of nails, and walls lined with pegboards. "I wanted you to see this before anyone else," she said. Ellie rushed forward, hands flying over a small child-sized workbench. Elian stood still, his eyes landing on a plaque mounted above the entryway. It read, "The Foster Workshop for the Hands That Build and the Hearts That Stay." He turned to Layla, eyes narrowed. "You named it after us." "I named it after what matters." He exhaled slowly. "You're really in this, aren't you? All the way." He stepped forward, pulling her against him, his hand at her waist. "Then I guess I am too." The kiss was quiet, unhurried, no crowd, no cameras, just them. Ellie looked up from the bench. Are you gonna marry her? Layla blinked. Elian laughed. That's not how you ask that question. Why not? Ellie said. She's already at all my school things, and she makes Dad smile like he won the lottery. Layla knelt beside her. Would that be okay with you? Ellie considered, then nodded. Only if I get 2 desserts at the wedding, Elian grinned. We'll see what we can do. 3 months later, on the rooftop of the very building where they first truly saw each other, Layla and Elian exchanged vows under strings of lights and a sky full of stars. Ellie stood proudly between them, holding the rings. There was no orchestra, no 5-tier cake, no designer spectacle. But there was laughter. There was love. And there was a promise that no matter where they came from, they'd built something together that would never fall apart. The first time Elian stepped into their new home, he didn't say anything. He just looked around, slow and quiet, one hand resting on the small of Layla's back as Ellie raced through the open space ahead of them. It wasn't massive like Layla's old penthouse, but it wasn't modest either. It was theirs. Large windows lined the walls, the view stretching over the park where they'd first met. The floors gleamed from the light streaming in, and the furniture chosen together over weekends filled with fabric samples and coffee-fueled debates reflected both of them. It was soft and strong, modern and warm, a space stitched together by compromise and care. Layla turned to him. It's not uptown or downtown, it's just here. Elian nodded. Feels like we finally landed. Ellie came skidding back across the hardwood. There's a skylight in my room. I can see the stars from bed. That was her only non-negotiable, Layla said, brushing her fingers against Elian's. I didn't fight her on it. I wouldn't have either. They stayed like that for a beat, the hum of the city below them a distant murmur, the quiet around them thick with something full. Elian glanced toward the open kitchen. You think we'll survive cooking in the same space? You've been living off takeout and grilled cheese for years. I think you'll adapt. He tilted his head. I make a killer chili. You said that about your pancakes, and they were lumpy. They had texture. They bounced. He leaned closer, voice low. You're going to be impossible to live with. I know, she whispered, leaning into him, but I'm worth it. That night, after Ellie had fallen asleep beneath her ceiling of stars, Layla and Elian sat on the balcony with bare feet and 2 mugs of tea between them. The city stretched out in every direction, but neither of them looked at it. They looked at each other. You know, she said, eyes half-lidded, I spent most of my life thinking I had to earn love by achieving something first. Like there was a checklist I had to complete before I could want something real. He brushed his thumb over her knuckles. And now, I think I was just scared no one would stay if I wasn't perfect. I'm not going anywhere, Layla. I believe you, she said. He looked down at her hand in his. I used to think love was something I'd get again someday, maybe, if I worked hard enough, like it was a prize. But now I think it's just showing up every day, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it is. I'm really glad I got lost that night, she whispered. I'm glad you were brave enough to follow me. The next morning, Elian stood in the middle of the kitchen, holding a pan like it might explode. Layla leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching him with a look that was equal parts amusement and cautious hope. You sure this is safe? She asked. If it's not, he said, I'll blame the stove. Ellie came padding in wearing mismatched socks and a sleep shirt with a glittery penguin on it. She climbed onto a stool and stared at the pan. That doesn't look like chili. It's breakfast chili, Elian said. Is that a real thing? It is now. Layla slid a plate toward her. Just try it before judging. Ellie poked at it with her fork, tasted a bite, then gave a solemn nod. It's not bad. Elian raised an eyebrow. That's the highest praise I've ever gotten from her. I'll take it, Layla said, sipping her coffee. Later that week, the 3 of them walked into the school auditorium for Ellie's class presentation. The theme was what makes a family, and the room buzzed with parents and grandparents and siblings perched on folding chairs. Ellie stood on stage, her voice steady and clear. A family is the people who show up, even when you least expect them. My dad always showed up. Then someone new showed up too, and she stayed. And now we're a team. Layla's fingers found Elian's. His grip tightened around hers, and neither of them said a word. After the applause, Ellie bounded off stage and threw her arms around them both. They walked home beneath low clouds, Ellie skipping ahead while Layla and Elian strolled behind her. The world felt quieter, like it had settled into place. That weekend, Elian surprised them both. He led them up to the rooftop of their building just as the sun began to dip behind the skyline. The sky was streaked with orange and rose gold, and a table stood in the center of the roof, draped in white linen and covered in candles. A single vase of tulips sat in the middle, Layla's favorite. She turned to him slowly. "What is this? I thought we should celebrate," he said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket, her breath caught. "Elian." "I don't have a speech," he said. "I don't have poetry or a grand story. I just have this life, and I want it with you, every part of it. The mornings when nothing goes right. The nights when we're too tired to talk. The days that are good and the ones that aren't. I want all of it with you." He opened the box. Layla stared at the ring, then back at him. "You're asking me to marry you. I'm asking you to stay." "Forever," she didn't hesitate. "Yes." The rooftop fell away, the skyline blurred, and when he slipped the ring onto her finger, everything felt exactly right. The wedding took place in the same park where they'd met, small, simple, surrounded by friends and the people who had stood with them as they built something lasting. Ellie stood at the front, holding a bouquet nearly as big as her grin. Layla wore a dress that shimmered like sunlight on water, and Elian wore a suit that actually fit this time. When the vows were said and the kiss sealed it, Ellie shouted, "Again!" Laughter rang out like bells. After the dancing, after the toasts, after the cake had been smeared on noses and wiped off with napkins, Layla leaned her head against Elian's shoulder as they slow danced beneath the lights strung through the trees. "You know what I used to say to myself when I was alone," she murmured. "What? That love like this wasn't for me, that I was too complicated, too much." He kissed her temple. "You're not too much, you're exactly enough." She closed her eyes. "You always see me, always will." As the song faded and the world around them slowed, they stood still, anchored not by circumstance or appearances, but by something quiet and unwavering, a choice, a promise, and a love that had never been an accident. It had always been waiting.